Today we are going over every NBA playoff team's best lineup in 2021-22. Here we go. At number 1 we have the Brooklyn Nets. Best closing lineup, Patty Mills, James Harden, Joe Harris, Kevin Durant, Nicholas Claxton. Let's begin with the obligatory Kyrie Irving currently isn't with the Brooklyn Nets disclaimer, and then let's move on. Few changes must be made to the Nets' projected starting five when they need to navigate crunch time. The Harden-Harris-Durant trio is hell on defenses, even without Kyrie. Squared. Those final two spots aren't as certain. Brooklyn can keep with its offensive theme and go with Mills and Blake Griffin. It can lean defensive with Claxton and Bruce Brown. Bet on the Nets splitting the difference, if only because I refuse to believe Claxton won't regularly make the cut. In all likelihood, Brooklyn will vary fifth wheel to close games, but Claxton should verge on a staple. He is a matchup proof on defense, and the Nets don't need to steer into 5-out arrangements when their four other players are so deadly from distance. At number 2, we have the Los Angeles Lakers. Best closing lineup, Russell Westbrook, Malik Monk, LeBron James, Trevor Ariza, Anthony Davis. Constructing the LA Lakers' best crunch time unit gets difficult after moving beyond their 3 stars. Some might argue only 2 of said stars, Davis and James, should be formalities. Great. Benching Westbrook down the stretch of tight games is unrealistic. Hashing out the next 2 spots was an extremely scientific process. I threw some stuff at the wall and I'm seeing if it sticks. Ariza is a quality guest to scamper into the 4 spot when he returns from right ankle surgery. Davis is going to close games at the 5, and the Lakers lost 3 of their 5 most important defenders, Alex Caruso, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Kyle Kuzma, all over the offseason. Getting away with Carmelo Anthony at the power forward is much tougher, with high-end stopping power is no longer implicit. Awarding the 5th spot is tougher. The Lakers could go mega big and pander to marquee name power and include Melo. Monk isn't giving them much, if any, more defense. Cam Bazemore potentially offers the best of both worlds, but isn't nearly as automatic from distance. Monk is a human microwave, and if LA's defensive integrity is up for debate, it must do everything possible to optimize the spacing around 2 shaking shooting entities like AD and Russ. At number 3, Milwaukee Bucks. Best closing lineup, Jrue Holiday, Dante DiScanio, Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Brook Lopez. If it ain't broke, then just leave it the damn hell alone. The Milwaukee Bucks outscored opponents by 10.3 points per 100 possessions across a huge sample size with a 5-some on the floor last season. It is their starting lineup and their best crunch time answer once DiScanio is all the way back from his left ankle injury. Replacing Lopez with Bobby Portis will appeal to many. It isn't an egregious line of thinking. Lopez is 33, and Porter wasn't mutilated when defending in space last year. Don't overthink this exercise. These are Milwaukee's 5 best players, and Lopez does more to protect the backline than Portis. If the Bucks want to pull Brolop, they could gamble on true Giannis at the 5 compilations. Lineup we need to see, Jrue Holiday, Dante DiScanio, Grayson Allen, Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis didn't get much tick last year without another big, namely Brook Lopez or Bobby Portis on the floor. That should change. The concept of him as a sole big is too tantalizing to roll out for under 750 possessions at this point. Granted, the defense under Giannis' true center minutes wasn't great. He is at his best when he can zoom around without being restricted to a singular focus. That's not enough to backburner this concept. Giannis and the defense can handle these reps. Minus Brian Forbes, who returned to play with the San Antonio Spurs this offseason, will help. Picking a 5th wheel to pair with the 4 other starters is a little dicey. Allen guarantees a whole bunch of shooting, a dab of dribbling, and is a defensive upgrade over Forbes in size alone. Rodney Hood has an outside shot at working himself into this convo if he's knocking down his jumpers. Semi Ojeleye is the higher defensive floor, much lower offensive ceiling option. Giannis Antetokounmpo defends like he doesn't have a player option for 2022-23, but Giannis jumpers have to be falling at preseason frequency to surrender the spacing necessary to play the former. Including George Hill for these stretches leaves the Bucks a little too small. At number 4 we have the Philadelphia 76ers. Best closing lineup, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Danny Green, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid. Excluding Simmons from the process no longer tracks. He's back with the Philadelphia 76ers in some form. The assumption must be that he'll play until he doesn't. Philly has no reason to deviate from its full strength. Simmons hasn't been traded or absented to Rich Paul's guest in Al's starting 5. This unit accounts for the Sixers' 5 best players. Maybe Mighty Stybel supersedes Green this season, and surrounds Embiid and Simmons with just as many floor spacers and secondary creators as they're going to get. Oh, it also works. The Sixers outpaced opponents by 16 points per 100 possessions with this group on the floor last year, and its net rating climbed to a plus 39.6 in the playoffs prior to Green's calf injury. If chaos reigns supreme on the Simmons front, Philly should probably just keep the other 4 together and bake in Tyrese Maxey. Thibault can fly too, but the offense wouldn't forfeit an awful lot of dribbling. Lineup we need to see. Ben Simmons, Isaiah Joe, Seth Curry, Danny Green, Tobias Harris. Simmons has returned to the Sixers in some capacity, which effectively obligates us to ride the chaos wave. Lineups without Embiid are inherently less fun, but it sounds like his soon-to-be former running mate wants to leave his own team. This actualizes that vision, sort of. Simmons +4 shooters is the standard bearer for any franchise tailored to the functional whims. Ideally, that lineup also includes a true center who stretches defenses beyond the arc. Kinda like Embiid, but with much lower usage and a less exuberant personality apparently. Tough noogies, this is who the Sixers have to field around them. Georges Niang can be substituted for Joe if Philly wants someone else to guard bigs. Then again, if preseason is a harbinger of things to come, Joe's the greatest shooter alive. Simmons minus bigs is not a lineup structure the Sixers have tied themselves to in the past. The results in scant reps last season, 170 possessions, weren't great. It kind of puts a damper on the distinguished Simmons just needs a team built around him like Giannis argument. At the same time, these groups haven't seen nearly enough reps over the years to entirely write them off. Let's see more of them, while Simmons is still in Philly. At number 5, we have the Phoenix Suns. Best closing lineup, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, and DeAndre Ayton. Straying from the Phoenix Suns starting 5 rings hollow, these 5 struggled to start the season last year, but ended up getting their act together. Keeping Cameron Johnson on the bench doesn't sit right, especially if his off-the-dribble junkets continue to be successful. Phoenix could use him instead of Crowder if it needs to jazz up the offense. Johnson is an underrated team defender and can stay in front of quicker players. Is he good enough to punt on Crowder's utility on that end? To be honest, with Bridges and Ayton on the floor, maybe. Starters plus Johnson outscored opponents by 20 points through 23 total fourth quarter minutes. At number 6, we have the Utah Jazz. Best closing lineup, Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Royce O'Neal, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Rudy Gobert. Choosing Utah Jazz's crunch time crutch is both effortless and painful. Excluding Joe Ingles is a gut punch. Self-loathing is kicked in. Utah can toggle between him and Bogdanovic as the situation demands, deferring to a 32-year-old who just averaged 17 points per game, while finding nylon on 39% of his threes over the 34-year-old who prefers to sling passes is otherwise not a devised decision. Let's get out in front of the geniuses worried about Gobert getting played off the floor, your tools. Gobert is a transcendent defender. He does not get marginalized or deleted from the planet versus micro units. The Jazz must figure out how he can better punish smaller defenders on offense and need a Springer wing to help disentangle his responsibilities at the other end in such instances. But the 3-time and reigning Defensive Player of the Year is not and will not be soon a liability. At number 7, we have the LA Clippers. Best closing lineup, Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann, Paul George, Nicholas Batum, Marcus Morris Sr. Including Ivica Zubac as the closing center was the first inclination. He's really good, quicker on his feet as the defensive end than credited, but the LA Clippers played without a true big last season for a little over 8% of their total possession. That's high enough to nudge them toward the no center option in crunch time. Kawhi Leonard's absence while recovering from a partially torn right ACL could change that calculus. Playing Mann in his stead registers a monster defensive drop-off. Eric Bledsoe might creep into the no center mix if he defends better than he did with New Orleans. This is still the pick. Batum, George, and Morris offer plenty of defensive switchability. Mann is big enough to move across parts of this positional spectrum. Batum and Morris can grind against conventional bigs if the other team doesn't downsize. And hey, the results speak for themselves. On one end, the Clippers posted an offensive rating north of 130 in no center lineups last year. This group specifically didn't log much time together, but they all shot above 40% from deep. This assembly has merit. At number 8, we have the Chicago Bulls. Best closing lineup, Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Patrick Williams, Nikolai Vucevic. Deviating from the Chicago Bulls' projected starting 5 is tough. Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, and Nikolai Vucevic are crunch time locks. Rounding out the group with a healthy Williams and floor spacer, a quality defender should tempt head coach Billy Donovan. But does he have the chupa to bench DeRozan? His overall stock is debatable, and he's one of the team's 2 best shot creators. Alex Caruso or Troy Brown Jr. would arm the Bulls with more defensive might. A healthy Kobe White ensures a more open floor in the first half court. Any of their inclusions likely come at the expense of Williams before DeRozan. Forced to choose, the assumption must be that Chicago's starting 5 spills over into crunch time. Williams hit enough of his threes as a rookie for this lineup to qualify as 4 out. Adding Caruso results in too much ball handling, and Brown must splash more threes to be a viable alternative. Well guys, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to Tip Top Sports, and ring that notification bell so you never miss another amazing video from us in the future. Once again, we thank you for watching, and we'll see you all in our next videos.